Hey there, if you are ready to keep leveling up your putting, this video is for you. Today we are going to talk about triangles. I know it's not geometry class, but we're going to talk about triangles, how they work really well for Bryson DeChambeau of the PGA Tour, but also how they can work well for you. In fact, they work well for so many of us that aspects of the triangle were literally outlawed with anchoring putting. So we're going to explain how that works, but what we can still use fairly and legally as a part of that. So stay tuned. If you watch golf on TV or pay attention to the tour, and I'm talking about the PGA Tour right now, you can't not know who Bryson DeChambeau is. He is the guy who we all know has kind of transformed his game in many ways, but we know that so much so because he's transformed himself physically. Now, don't worry, we're not talking about, getting into the gym and bulking up like Bryson did. I think he put on 30 or 40 pounds of muscle. We neither have the time nor the inclination to do that, most of us. But what we are going to talk about is how he uses the rocking motion to really sink putts. Now, we know him because he can hit the ball a country mile, but we should also know him because once he hits the country mile, he's pretty darn good at getting it into the hole. So his putting motion is pretty extreme as compared to some of the other gentlemen on tour, but the fundamentals are things that all of us can lock in on to really help improve our putting performance and consistency. So let's get to it. So we know that Bryson DeChambeau is a little bit of an outlier as compared to the rest of us, and that's okay. We want to hone what we can from what he does really well and put it into our game. So that makes it nice and simple and useful at the same time, right? So one of the things that you'll notice if you ever watch him play is that during his putting, he is literally locked in. His arms are frozen. I mean, you can see from the side, I don't even know if I'm doing it justice. He is locked in. Now, what that does is then when he takes his putting stroke, obviously if your arms are frozen, there's no way that your wrists and your hands can become very active in that putting stroke. And that's a really good thing because the hands and arms and wrists, when we have too many moving parts in the putt, bad things tend to happen. So we want to minimize the action, and the things that are moving, we want them to work together effectively to meet our objective, which is getting a nice smooth roll into the hole, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to learn from Bryson and like many other putters to learn to utilize and visualize triangles. If you notice here, I'm in my putting stance and I'm locked in not nearly as much as Bryson, but this is my typical putting stance. If you notice, if you look at my arms here, here, and then of course the club would be a stem. So I'll step back a little bit further so you can see a bit more clearly. It's a triangle right up here. My arms create this triangle. Now, that is commonly talked about. The triangle is important because then as I rock my shoulders, I'm maintaining that triangle. That is my objective, right? If I'm moving my wrists and hands, there's no triangle there. We've got some circles or that type of thing. So we want to maintain that triangle. Now, there's another triangle that I want you to begin to think about, and this one is less commonly spoken about. If I think about the putter head, my putter head, serving as the bottom of a triangle, my arms are already in a triangle. It's going to go from one side of the triangle to the other, creating the base, if you will, of the triangle. The club will move forward toward the target, creating the angle. So I've had the line straight down, the putter head's going here, and then the shaft is going to go there, creating another triangle. So if I think in a very linear fashion and keeping that club head and that putter moving straight, I've created two triangles, which will get me some good putts. So I know that's kind of weird, but I want you to think about that again. Let's talk about it. During my setup, my arms along with my putter are creating one triangle. When I look down, thinking about where my putter head starting position is, that's kind of point one. Point two will be at the end point of that stroke, which will be a straight line, point two. But my putter shaft will create that third line. So we have 1, 2, 3 coming up. So if you think about it in terms of triangles, good things will happen. Now this is an interesting fact as related to these triangles and what we're talking about here today. Many of you may know what anchoring is in putting. And you may also recall that, I can't recall if it's 4 or 5 years ago at this point, both the USGA, United States Golf Association, and the R&A, so basically the world's governing bodies, outlawed anchoring in putting. And the reason is because anchoring facilitates the making of those triangles. Basically, it makes almost 1/3 to 2/3 of that triangle for you. Because if I'm able to anchor, I'm able to lean this putter shaft as far up my forearm as I wanted to, which is what many players did. And so all they had to do was then further put it into their belly. Of course, many of them were playing with much longer putters than this one here, and rock. If you were able to move just a bit, you were able to maintain the perfect triangle, which was basically doing most of the putting for you. So just a little tidbit to help you understand how powerful and valuable that triangulation is.